First, the good news. You probably won't be murdered, run over by a bus, or eaten by a shark. Murders, transport and animal accidents kill just 7% of people in the developed world every year. Now, the less good news. Most people, when asked, say they would like to die quickly, ideally without warning, and in their sleep. But the reality is that your death will almost certainly be lingering, drawn out, and with plenty of forewarning. That's because it's likely you will die of a chronic disease. Roughly 87% of deaths in the developed world are caused by a non-infectious disease, a condition that starts deep in the tissues of your own body and lasts a long time, slowly and ruthlessly reducing your ability to lead a full life until you die. This means you will probably die in hospital, 60% of us do, with 1 in 10 having been there for a month or more. Just 18% of us die in our own homes, comforted by the sight of familiar surroundings and possessions. On the plus side, you will probably not die in pain. Pain is fully controlled in 60 to 70% of cases of chronic disease, though dying inevitably involves some neurological and bone pains that are hard to relieve. That's how you die, but what exactly will kill you? Most likely, your heart. You have a 1 in 3 chance of dying from a cardiovascular disease. That means a failure of your circulatory system, the system of veins and arteries that is steadily and rhythmically pumping blood around your body at a rate of around 80 beats per minute right now as you watch this film. 12% of you will die from a heart attack and 8% from a stroke. The single biggest risk factor is something you can do little to prevent: high blood pressure. In over 90% of cases, the cause of high blood pressure is simply unknown. The next thing most likely to kill you is cancer, caused when a mutation develops in one of your cells and reproduces uncontrollably. Cancer is responsible for 1/4 of all deaths in the developed world. Chances are that a cancerous cell has already developed in your body. It can take many years for it to divide and grow and form a tumor big enough to cause symptoms or show up on a scan. It will probably be in your bowel or lung. Cancers in those parts of the body are the most common, making up 13% of all new cancer cases. There are variations due to gender, of course. If you're a woman, then cancer will most likely start in your breast, and if you're a man, it will get going in your prostate. You can reduce the chances of getting some cancers. 22% of them are caused by smoking, but 2/3 of cancers are non-preventable, which means no change to your lifestyle or diet will ever help. And by far the biggest risk factor is the least preventable of all: age. 63% of people who get cancer are over the age of 65. If cancer doesn't kill you and cardiovascular disease doesn't either, then a respiratory disease probably will. 9.4% of people who died in 2010 died from a condition like bronchitis or emphysema that affected their lungs. And then there are a myriad of lesser causes. Chief among them is dementia. 4.3% of us will go this way, though that's not to say that it's unlikely you'll get dementia, because current estimates suggest 1/3 of people who die of other causes also have dementia. What we can say is that when you die, you will almost certainly be old. By 2030, people over the age of 65 will account for 86% of deaths in the developed world, while 44% will be people over 85. Which brings us to the most pressing question of all: when will it happen? Probably when you're about 80. On average, people in the developed world live to be 79.7 years old, which means that if you're 15, you have roughly 65 years left, and if you're closer to 45, it's more like 35, and if you're 65 and all goes well, you have about 15 years left. There are variations, of course. Women live about 5 years longer than men. If you live in Japan, you'll probably live 3 years beyond 80, whereas living in Hungary or Turkey might mean you live 5 years less. If you're overweight, you might lose a year, while being severely obese risks losing up to 13 years. If you had a degree by the time you were 30, you might live 6 years longer than someone who didn't. And if you're in a happy relationship, you might live longer too. One scientist has likened the effect on your health of companionship to that of not smoking. Though we can never predict the future, these facts and figures can't change one simple, incontrovertible, ghastly fact: the likelihood that we will all die is 100%. Which is why, in the time that remains, we must be kind, especially to those around us and to ourselves. We must understand our true talents and potential and try to put them to use, and we must appreciate every day, aware that the end might not be so far away.